back with another question and answer live session from the winter facility here in Vasiliki on the Greek island of Lefkos. Yeah, it's just to give you the update on the weather. You may have seen I've gone up a notch on the jumper and the woolly hat. It is just nudging on a bit chilly at the moment in Greece. It's been raining pretty much non-stop for what seems like a long time, but I think it was just a week of solid rain. So there's puddles aplenty around the place, and now it's just a bit cold, and it is getting towards that time of year where in the mountains it could even snow. I know, unbelievable, but it could snow, and that is a thing. If it's still, I think we're still definitely in the plus figures, but overnight in the mountains, that's when we could be seeing a bit of snow. Yeah, so back to answer any questions that you may have, and just going to kick off, seeing as I've got nothing in at the moment. I just spotted that on this 16 I've got EPO 3 rudder blades, which might be of interest to you. The EPO 3 rudder blades are the pinnacle of rudder blade technology for Hobie 16s and 14s. So if you are looking to upgrade your rudder blades, these are the best you can get. But what I've learned from watching Rich's webinar, I think it was called, on the Hobie class YouTube page, if you've got an older boat, like let's say pre-1980, maybe 85 even, putting these rudder blades on. Hi Pierre, nice to have you on board. Putting these rudder blades on might not be the best plan, because these rudder blades don't flex at all, which means if you've got an older boat, all of that, the rudder blade would usually flex with the Lexan rudder blade, or even with the White Knight to a certain degree. But if you've got no flex coming from the blade, all of that pressure is going to be getting taken by the back of the boat, which means if you have got an older boat and you're going out sending it, giving it massive beans, possibly with two big fellas on the trapeze, then you could jeopardize the transom of your hull, and I don't think anybody wants to be doing that. Oh no. So but if you have got a boat, I'd say if you've got a boat from 1990 onwards and you really enjoy sailing as fast as possible and you want that crispy feel, the EPO 3 is going to give you that's right, that's what it's going to give you, that. But it does come with a fairly hefty price tag. But I think I've probably said this before, but I think it was about getting on for 5 years ago now, we replaced all of our Hobie 16 rudder blades for EPO 3s. That's 12 rudder blades. That was quite a hefty whack. Before we replaced them, we were snapping on average one White Knight rudder blade every 2 weeks. And having replaced them for the EPO 3s in the last 5 years, we haven't snapped one rudder blade. Not one. None at all. So I'd say that has been a worthy test for the EPO 3s, which I think you can't argue with. Hi Valentine, good to have you on board. If anybody's got any questions, then of course I'm here to answer the questions. Otherwise I'll just have to think about what to talk about next. Can't wait to go back on the water. Yeah, I know what you mean. It seems like, even though it's only been a couple of months for us here in Greece, it does seem like it feels like it's been a very long time. And, you know, not annoyingly, but just to poke you with a stick. Hi, Aidan. That's a good question. I'm just going to talk about this poked with a stick thing. Hi, Steve-O. Nice to have you on board. Chris in Tokyo. Yeah. Nice. We are spreading our wings. Must be, what would it be? Almost nighttime in Tokyo, is it? Valentine says he'll be back on the water in Holland in April. And, all right, before I go on to being poked by a stick, Aidan says, how long have you worked at Wild Wind? I've been working here now for, last year was my 25th year out here. And it just keeps on delivering. This place is ridiculous. In the summer, with the fleet of boats that we've got and the conditions that we get the strong wind, but without waves. So it really does mean you can go out and push the envelope in pretty much any type of boat in the really strong wind, where in the real world, if you were getting any waves, then once the wind is above, like probably above 25 knots, you'd be scratching your head going, ooh, looks a bit iffy out there. But because the water stays completely flat, it means we can still sail. And it's not unheard of to be out in, let's say, 35 knots of wind on occasion and getting away with it. So that is one of the beauties of this place, is it has got a very good upper wind range. But the other great thing with here is that in the summer months, it's windy, let's say on average throughout the whole summer, 5 days out of 7. So if you're wanting to practice or train, or just you love getting out on a catamaran on the trapeze, then this is definitely a good spot. And it's just kept me coming back year after year. And I think it was about 3 years ago I started going a bit heavier on the YouTube videos. Before that, I was just making them when I filmed something that I thought was cool, I'd put it on YouTube. But about 3 years ago, I went a little bit more structured in the YouTube videos, and that has given me an extra bit of interest. Just being able to deliver what I've learned over the last 30 years or so to the global Joyrider TV community is a gift. And when people are saying that it really helps, that definitely makes it all worthwhile. All right, I'm hoping, but we haven't got any tappy today on the screen. I'm using the external microphone. Hopefully I set it up correctly. All right, we've got John Bishop on board. I have to say, yeah, that's right. I was going to be modelling the Yeah, That's Right t-shirt, but it's a bit chilly for it. John Bishop, of course, as we know, is doing exactly what I do on YouTube, but focusing on the sport of skateboarding and really breaking down moves and analysing them. So if you're into a bit of skateboarding or just wanting to see somebody occasionally hurting themselves, tapping, no! Or is that a smiley face? Tapping yes, tapping no. We have tapping. God, this is a tricky fella, this microphone. Yeah, so there we go, scrolling back. Sorry about the tapping noise. Escalated numbers of people. The internet is really on its breaking point generally. Okay, so I'm going to crack on with Tom's question about Nakra 15 versus Nakra 500. They are very different animals. The Nakra 15 is a very modern design, only was released maybe 4 years ago, maybe 5. And the Nakra 15 has the long dagger boards and is available as a foiling boat. Very much state-of-the-art, lightweight, racing bad boy with a price tag to match. Whereas the Nakra 500, you can pick up from right back through the days. It's a much older design with the skeg hull. So if it depends what you are looking to do with your sailing, if you're looking to be racing at a fairly high end, or you really want to get the ultimate with the potential for a bit of foiling down the line as well, because I believe the Nakra 15, you can sail it with straight dagger boards, or you can convert it to fully foiling. So the Nakra 15 would have that versatility, whereas the Nakra 500, you'll be able to pick up for, I would say, less than 1/10 of the cost. And both boats will work brilliantly, either single-handed or with a crew. But that's the big factor, is the cost. And also with the Nakra 15 being a very lightweight racing design, it will be more fragile as well. So if you want something more robust, something you can throw around, pull up the beach maybe, then the 500. If you want something that is, people are going to look at and go, oh my goodness, what on earth is that bad boy doing in the boat park, and whose is it? Then the Nakra 15 is nice. Okay. All right, so I believe I am back, and thanks for tuning back in to those of you who I lost, which I think was everyone. Okay, 10 p.m. in Japan, in Tokyo. I think that's the sort of information that we need right now. What time of day is it? Hi, Lorenzo. Good to have you on board. I believe that's Lorenzo, who I met here on the beach this summer. Good times all round. Valentine says, will you sail any matches in 2021? The one that is definitely on the cooker at the moment on my radar is the Tornado World Championships, which is in September, which happens to be quite conveniently in Greece, granted on the other side of Greece, but in Greece it's definitely handy not having to do any excessive travelling, because to be doing an event which is in Greece is certainly beneficial, because that will save probably overall about 3 days of travelling compared to if I had to go to like mainland Europe, for example, or definitely if I was going to get on an aeroplane and go to somewhere else. So yeah, that's in September this year. Also, possibly, but unlikely, I would love to go and do Hobie 16 Europeans, or I believe the Europeans this year in Spain, but it is unlikely. I think it's scheduled for, is it the middle of June, the Hobie 16 Europeans, and it is not just unlikely, it's off the menu to be able to get away at that time of year, because Wildwind, if you didn't know, is a sailing holiday resort where people come out in the summer months to do some sailing, and it's necessary that I am here as much of the time as possible. So unlikely there. All right, scrolling back. All right, we've got Pablo in France. Hi, Pablo. I don't know if you're still there, Pablo, but if you are, hello. And Aidan, that's crazy. It certainly is. All right, Valentine says, I will soon send you some videos of my Nakra Mark III for Show Us Your Cat. Thank you very much. I think the well is getting a little dry for Show Us Your Cat at the moment. So if you have been thinking, if you're sitting on a pile of photographs of your boat, not literally, unless could be, and you're thinking of sending them in, then do send them in, because we are getting, well, to keep Show Us Your Cat going, we need cats to show. So if you've got a cat to show, then show us your cat. You know, you've been looking at other people's, now it's time to show us yours. That would be great if you are thinking about that. All right, scrolling back. All right, yeah, just going past the tapping comments. Is the C2 harder to sail, to Hobie Tiger or Hobie Wildcat? That's a good question, actually. I would say that none of the boats are necessarily harder or easier to sail, but the benefit with the Tiger is because of the shape of the hulls, it kind of sits in the water a little bit, whereas with the Wildcat or the C2 is definitely very similar to the Wildcat in hull shape and the way it feels. But with the Tiger, because it hasn't got the flat bottom hull, which means it sits slightly in the water, it means it's got a bit more directional stability, whereas the flat-bottomed F-18s or any flat-bottomed catamarans are going to feel much, much twitchier. Twitchy meaning that you need to be really, really sensitive on the steering. Otherwise, what you could do on a Tiger, you could put the tiller extension, do something, pick it up, boat would still be going in pretty much a straight line. Whereas on the C2 or the Wildcat, if you do that, and there's a strong chance that the boat will alter course quite dramatically. So you definitely need to be more sensitive on those more modern designs. In terms of getting top performance out of that top performance out of it, whereas with the more modern boats, they will go fast fine tuning that you give them. They will certainly give you more performance. So that is what we're looking at in the difference. But then with the C2 and the Wildcat being more modern designs, they're perhaps a little bit better laid out. The C2 certainly, I haven't sailed a Wildcat for some time, but the C2 is definitely a lot better laid out than the Tiger. So in that respect, it is easier to sail because everything is so much more ergonomic and better laid out like that. There we are. All right, scrolling back. Sorry about the tapping noise. Okay, we've got Kurosh on board. I have been flying the hull a lot recently and want to know, once in the air, what is the best way to stay in the air stable? This is fantastic. What a great question. Flying the hull, I would say, is one of the key skills that any catamaran sailor should be looking to learn. And once learnt, you can never stop just working your flying the hull technique. Because by flying the hull, it means that you're definitely in control of the boat. You know where the edge is. And so we'll go on to what you can do to control the amount of hull flying. Three main elements. The first element depends on the wind strength to a certain degree, but first element is your body weight, where you're putting your body, your sitting position. Second element is the trim of the sails. And the third element is your course. You can do a bit with your course to control the altitude that you're getting with the windward hull. So firstly, with your body weight, maybe sounds quite obvious, but if we're sitting on the side of the boat, here we go, I'll simulate this. So here's me sitting on the side of the boat, or even on the trapeze. To start with, in your hull flying career, I would definitely suggest sitting on the side of the boat, put your feet under the tow strap so you don't go skidding down the trampoline when the hull comes up. And then when the hull comes up, just very slowly start to lean back as it comes up. If it keeps going up, just keep leaning back, maybe shuffle out a little bit. And if you're sailing a 16, what you can actually do, once your hull is up, you can get your buttocks right over the bar there and plant your buttocks in this gap here. And when this hull is up, this makes quite a good stable position. Of course, you may have to get back onto the boat fairly quickly, but that is with the crew weight moving out a bit as you fly the hull. Also, if you've got the hull up at 45 degrees is about the angle that is like your point of no return. Once you get up towards there, if you get right over the sidebar, then you're not going to slide down the hull. You're going to feel very secure. And then you should be able to, from that position, we'll come on to the next elements of sail trim and steering. And then, of course, if the hull starts coming down and you're just using the crew weight, then going towards the centre of the boat is going to help to prevent that splashdown of the windward hull. Then, with the sails, if you're sailing solo, I think a great exercise with any catamaran is to go out in light winds solo and practice flying the hull solo in light wind. I've done 2 hull flying videos on joyridertv, both of which have been solo, but it means in the lighter winds you can get the hull in the air and she will glide along nicely. But if you're sailing solo, just set the jib and forget about the jib completely. And then with the traveller, this is going against perhaps perfect sail trim. I find it's better to have the traveller in the middle and then to just work the main sheet with the traveller in the middle. The reason for having the traveller in the middle would be because then it's another thing that you don't have to think about. If you need to bring the main sheet in all the way, if you need as much power as possible, then you can start to crank it all in and there you are. But if you're out in a stronger wind, then of course having the traveller in the middle might be completely unsuitable. So let the traveller out a little bit and work from that position. Then, so just main sheet. If you want the hull to lift more, sheet in. If you want the hull to come down, sheet out. And what we're looking for with our hull flying is so that the hull's not going up or down, so that it's just constant at one angle. So once you get it at a decent angle, try just to settle, and you have to be fairly cool about it, have your poker face on and not do anything. The other thing we can do, which I would say is probably the least, you should be doing it the least, is steering. The best course for this hull flying would be either a close reach or a close hauled point of sail. So towards the wind, what you might call upwind, or just a little bit away from upwind. That's when you'll get the most heeling force, especially in the lighter winds. And then with the steering, what you can do if you feel that you must, is to bring the hull down. You can steer up into the wind. If you want the hull up a bit, you can steer away from the wind slightly, but making all of your rudder movements very, very small, very smooth, and very subtle indeed. So by using those elements and balancing them against each other, so using your body weight and the main sheet most of the time, then that is the best for controlling that hull flying. Okay, I think I saw that Kurosh put something else there, a little more advanced now, flying on the trapeze. Issue is when I'm flying and I feel like I'm about to go beyond 45 degrees, I release a little of the main sheet, but that soon makes the boat land. Yeah, so I think what we're looking at there is where you're releasing a little bit of main sheet, you want to release even less main sheet just to balance the boat there. And perhaps you've got the main sheet in one position for any period of time, maybe keep playing the main sheet in and out, and that way you'll be able to feel exactly, like we've said before with the going for speed sailing as well, playing the main sheet all of the time or a lot of the time really lets you know where the edge is and where the limit is on your control. So play the main sheet more regularly, and then you'll have a much better feel of being in control, knowing where the edge is, and knowing that you have got the ability to bring the hull down a little bit if necessary. I know that kind of goes against what I just said with once you've got the hull in one position, keep everything where it is. But if you really want to know where your control is, then just play a small amount of main sheet and just feel the small differences that makes to the boat. I hope that helps in some way. That is all I've got on the topic at this time. All right. All right, see, Valentine says best thing to do is keep your body still and sheet, not so much. Yeah, there are many ways that you can go about this. I think the main thing is just do it more. Because with this sort of sailing, it's very much about feel. Getting to know the limits. It's about feel. So the more hours you spend doing it, the more feel you will get, and that is how you are going to become a master of the hull flying down the beach. Very nice. Everybody loves catamaran with the hull in the air. That's what it's all about. Okay, hello Andre. Okay, Andre asks, what is a cheap brand of cat in Montenegro? Okay, okay, he says it's 14, 16 here in Montenegro. I'd say I don't really know much about the catamaran scene in Montenegro, but what I would assume is the Hobie 16 would be the most abundant catamaran in any country, meaning there's more of that type of boat than any other type of catamaran. So the Hobie 16 there's going to be the most of. And I have said it before, sorry to repeat myself, but the Hobie 16 for that reason, and for the fact that they're so well built and they're such a pleasure to sail, it makes the Hobie 16 the ideal choice of catamaran, unless there is something quite specific that you're looking for. I would say a general catamaran to get, until you know a bit more specifically what you're after, is the Hobie 16, because there are so many of them about. Yes, they are quite powerful for the size of the boat. In fact, you could say extremely powerful, but you just balance that amount of power against how much wind you're going to go sailing in, and that way it is an achievable yes. Okay, scrolling back. Hello to everybody who's been tuning in, by the way. Yes, of course we're live, as I'm sure you've spotted. All right, just staying hydrated, it's important. Okay, Valentine asks, do you prefer F18 or Tornado? And I have to say it, I think regular visitors to Joyrider TV will probably know the answer already, but it is Tornado. I absolutely love the Tornado. It's the size of the boat and the carbon mast which really make it a little bit, for me, spicier than the F18. On the Tornado, because of the width, when you're going upwind, and because you've got the carbon mast, which gives you more control over the shape of the sail than with an aluminium section. When you're sailing upwind, if you start flying a hull too much, you could just hike out, trapeze a little bit harder, pull the downhaul on more, and the boat just goes faster and faster. Of course, you could do that to a certain extent on the F-18, but on the Tornado, you can Tornado and the F-18 are both absolutely fantastic, with the spinnaker up, just really full power, sending it downwind on either type of boat, but which kind of makes them a bit even. I'd say Tornado versus C2. The C2 downwind is so much fun because, as I was saying earlier, with these modern F-18s, they're so sensitive on the steering. It really does feel like you're in control of an extremely powerful go-kart on the downwind point of sail on the C2. Whereas on the Tornado, it's a bit more sophisticated, not sophisticated, a bit more, a bit less flighty, bit easier to control because the boat's longer and wider and it's got the shorter rudders. Then it means that the boat is a bit smoother, less jumpy, but it's that jumpiness of the F-18 that makes it so exciting. But overall, I go Tornado because I love it so much. There we go. There we go. That is the overall conclusion to that question. Scrolling back. Sorry about any noise that you're getting there. Andre says F-18. I think the majority of people would say F-18 because the F-18 is a massive class, whereas the Tornado is a very exclusive class without so many people sailing them. Hi, Matthew. Great to have you on board. Hello, Jack. Nice to have you on board. Lorenzo says, Joe, is the Jib Cunningham as important as the mainsail downhaul in order to decrease power in high wind? Not as important. Short answer. The downhaul on the mainsail is going to have a very large effect. The Cunningham on the jib is going to have a smaller effect, but we're using a combination of everything to get the boat as close to perfect as we can in all situations. So the way that you'll know when it's time to pull the Jib Cunningham on is when you get the stronger wind. Doesn't matter what type of boat you're sailing, but if you're sailing upwind in stronger wind, you want to be pulling the jib in tight, because what that is going to do is flatten the jib on an upwind point of sail. If you're reaching, sailing across the wind, close reach, downwind, then no. But upwind, sailing as close as you can towards the wind, as long as you're not absolutely getting pummeled with the amount of wind that you've got, then have the jib in really tight, like 2 arms tight, because that is going to flatten the sail off. On a Hobie 16 or a boat that has a jib traveller, pull the jib traveller all the way to the outside so that then you've got that it's effectively sheeted further out. But then with the sheet, crank it in and that's going to flatten the sail. That is going to do more for flattening the sail than if you're sailing a F-18 than the Jib Cunningham. But here's where the Cunningham comes in. When you've pulled the jib in with 2 hands, if you haven't pulled the Jib Cunningham on, you'll get a load of horizontal creases down the luff of the jib because you're pulling it down and there's not enough tension in the luff to keep to stop it from kind of bunching up. So you need to sheet the jib out again, pull the Jib Cunningham on a bit, then crank it in, have a look at the luff, and then if there's no horizontal creases, then you're probably pretty much there. One thing to look out for with the Jib Cunningham is make sure you don't pull it so that the jib is taking the weight off the forestay. So if when you're on the land, this would be probably the only time that you could do this. When you're on the land, put the sails up on the boat in a controlled situation, so not when there's much wind. Get the main sheet on, crank the main sheet on. What that is going to do is tighten up the forestay, because the main sheet is pulling, if this is our mainsail jib, pulling the mainsail up is going to pull the mast backwards, tightening up the forestay. And with the main sheet on, then pull the Jib Cunningham on and pull it on as tight, increasingly tight, and just look at the front of the jib, and you'll get to a stage where the front goes from a curve like that to suddenly it'll get like a hard crease in it. When it's got that hard crease in, then you're on the limit of too much. Crank the jib sheet in as much as you can. Take a look at the jib and see if there's those horizontal creases. And if there's not horizontal creases there, then that's a pretty good indication that that is a good high wind setting for your Jib Cunningham. Nice idea if you've got a nice idea is to have a light coloured rope. The colour of rope is important. Yeah, because if you've got a light coloured rope, you can then take a pen, a marker pen, put a mark on where you've decided your maximum is, and then you know that that is as much as you pull it. But with a lot of Jib Cunningham systems, you have to kind of retie them every time you rig up. So check it every time you go out sailing, unless you've got a system that means it's going to be in the same spot every time. But yeah, that is about the size of it with the Jib Cunningham. And then in lighter wind, we want to have more shape in the sail. So we want to have the Jib Cunningham as little as possible, so we get the maximum fullness. But again, if the amount you're sheeting in the jib means you're getting these horizontal creases, then you're going to need just to pull the Jib Cunningham on a bit. And to do that, you need to sheet the jib out just for the mechanics of the beast. There we go. I thought that was a pretty good answer, actually. Okay. Scrolling back. It's probably why you're getting some sort of noise. Jack says, hi, Jack. I'm 12 and I sailed an MR15, a Fever, and I drove a Hobie Cat and did the trapeze. Oh, yes. And I would wager that the Hobie Cat on the trapeze was maybe the most fun. Just guessing, throwing it out there. But this is Joyrider TV, where that is important. Okay, we've got, is that Willem or Willem? Can you, in the America's Cup, G stands for the common term for the sailing downwind on any boat that doesn't go straight downwind. So a boat that would go straight downwind would be perhaps most commonly the Laser or the Optimist for Jack, or perhaps a traditional keel boat or yacht. Those, or anything with a symmetrical spinnaker, those will sail straight downwind. But with performance cat downwind, we sail a series of zigzags, like pretty much the opposite of what we do going upwind. And there is the reason that we sail these angles downwind is because sailing the boat straight downwind is extremely slow, because we're not getting the benefit of airflow over both sides of the sail. The reason the fully battened mainsail that we have on catamarans is fast is because we have an airflow over both sides of the sail. If we go too far downwind, then we'll just get blown along like we're in a laser. So there's a certain amount that we can go downwind. And so what we're balancing is the angle to the speed. that is basically what the VMG is. We're trying to find the optimal angle with the best. On any small catamaran that doesn't foil, our optimal downwind VMG is with the apparent wind, hoping that we're all in the program with the apparent wind. If anybody wants me to explain apparent wind, just leave a comment right now. Something like AW question mark would do. But we want our apparent wind straight across the boat, so that's perpendicular. Then yes, we're going to be sailing faster, but we're not going to be getting to where we want to go. Does that make sense? So the VMG is that balance between direction and speed. I thought that was a pretty good explanation, actually. Yeah, so on a boat with 2 sails, non-foiling, it is pretty easy to determine that angle by using the telltales on the front. If we're talking in the context, boat with a spinnaker in light winds, this is really difficult to work out what the best VMG is. And the only real way to find out is you could either, if your wind is very consistent, angles, do perhaps sail one downwind leg with where you go a bit higher, so you power the boat more. Perhaps if the wind is light, this is, so bring the boat up enough to get the hull in the air, like if you're sailing an F-18, for example, get the hull in the air and then put your jibe in, get the hull in the air by coming high enough, and even time how long it takes you to sail that leg, or have some sort of reference. Maybe if you've got a coach in a powerboat, then you're winning, obviously. Or with a GPS, that'd be good, running an app on your telephone, and then sailed the same leg again, but using these 90-degree apparent wind angles, but with the spinnaker up, and see which is more efficient. If you go to a competition, you'll find out which is the most efficient and optimal very, very quickly, because if you do the wrong one, you're gonna not be doing so well in the race. There we are. Okay, thanks very much for the question there. That was a very good one. It's perfect sailing season in Dubai, says Kurosh. Nice. I think there's quite a few places where it's looking good, but quite a few places where it's looking off at the moment. Yeah, I was saying earlier actually about getting poked with a stick. Yeah, it is a little bit at the moment like getting poked with a stick today here, because there's a really nice southerly wind, which means it comes with it some rolling swell, which we never get in the summer. And but we're not allowed out on the water because of lockdown. And there we are. But to be fair, I do get to do so much sailing in the summer that I should not complain at all. All right, we've got Steve-O, who says on the hull lifting topic, if going hard upwind and the hull comes up, what's the first thing to do? I always head up to gain distance. All right, this is a great question, actually. Yeah, so if you're sailing upwind, hull starts, just to quantify what sailing upwind means, we're sailing on a course from point A here to point B here, point B being upwind of point A, although I think the upwind mark would usually be called A, downwind B, but never mind. So if we're trying to get to an upwind destination, depends on the size of the gust. If you're sailing upwind, and the boat going to do is we're not actually going to physically push the rudders away to head closer to the wind. Instead, what we'll do is we'll just release our grip slightly on the tiller extension, on the stick, and by doing that, the boat will naturally just head upwind a little bit. So that is going to help us to get to the next mark a lot sooner because we're sailing closer to the wind. If you get hit by a gust, which is so big that to steer the boat up towards the wind to get the hull to stop lifting, we're actually going to start slowing down, because what we don't want to do is slow down. We want to go as fast as possible. Then we're going to use a combination of going up towards the wind and just easing a little bit of main sheet. So a combination of a little bit of steering, little bit of main sheet, and then once you're there, if the hull starts to come down, crank main sheet in again, and then if the hull's still coming down, very gently bring the boat downwind, just down a few degrees, if that, just to get the power back on. So what we're looking to do is have the hull just out of the water all of the time. If you're in a two-person boat, which I know, Steve-O, you're not, but if you were in a two-person boat, if you're already lifting the hull and you're coming towards a gust and your downhaul isn't on maximum as you're entering the gust, as soon as you enter into that gust, hull starts to lift, just squeeze the downhaul on as well. This is advanced stuff. Don't worry about this if you're in the survival kind of mode. This is if you're on the race course and really trying to get 100% out of the boat. But as you come into the gust, squeeze the downhaul on. That's going to flatten the sail, open up the top, and the boat is going to go faster, and off you go. And then if you're coming out of the gust, before you actually come into the lull, ease the downhaul off again, so that as you hit the area of less wind, you're going into that area with maximum power. So you'll continue with that power and hopefully most of that speed as the wind drops. It's just starting to rain. Lovely. Very nice. Okay, scrolling back. I think we're at the stage of the game where we could possibly say no further questions, please. I'm just changing my location to a little bit more undercover. All right, here we go. I'm just scrolling back. For those of you who haven't hit one of these live streams before, I will come on to everybody's questions. Of course, I'm just going through them in the order of... All right, Luke. Oh, Valentine, I know what type of boat Steve-O sails. A trapeze and a spinnaker and dagger boards. Moving swiftly on. Happy too. I hope it's starting off very nicely and that the sun's shining. It's just coming up. Is it just coming up to about a year ago when it was the Worlds in Florida? Wow. Wasn't the world a different place back then? Adjustable downhaul, you should release the main. Don't steer upwind, you will lose your speed. Okay, yeah, Valentine's kind of saying what I was saying there, but what I'm saying is first thing, if it's a smaller gust, so if you can steer upwind a bit and you don't lose your speed, so if you gain height, but you are going to lose speed because you're turning upwind so much that you're going to start to slow down, then use a combination of main sheet and steering to control the boat. You should always, especially in a competitive situation, if you're sailing upwind and you get a gust, you should always try to gain a bit of height every time you get a gust. I think that is important in a strategic kind of way. All right, Tom says F20 or Tornado. I tend, which were an international Formula 20, the Tornado would beat it against those guys. But if I had the opportunity to have a go on the Nakra 20 FCS, then that would put a cat amongst the pigeons. That FCS looks like an absolute beast. For those of you who don't know, the Nakra 20 FCS is a very lightweight, cutting edge 20-foot boat. I don't know how wide it is, obviously 20 foot long, but it is fully foiling and it is an absolute beast. And yes, I'd love to, in case anybody's wondering. Okay, Rich says, just acquired a used Nakra 15. Is this a one-person boat? Mine has C dagger boards. Oh my goodness. Rich, you are a very lucky man to have acquired a used Nakra 15. We've been talking about the Nakra 15 a fair bit on these Q&As, and I feel a little bit underqualified to talk about it because I've only ever seen pictures and videos of them on the internet. Just struggling today with the internet now. Hello. Yeah, really, the internet isn't love. Okay, we're just on to short answers. Valentine says, is there a possibility you could make a video where you explain what to do for the crew and what to do for the helm during the mark rounding? Yeah, that's a great idea, actually. It is actually something I haven't done yet in the context of mark rounding. So yes, but that will have to wait until May probably, when we've got boats on the water and we're allowed back out. But yes, that one will be going on the list. And Herbert, hi Herbert, nice to have you with us. Have a nice day, everyone. I'm looking forward to better weather and the start of sailing season. Everybody stay healthy and safe. The wind for sailing will always be there. Hello from Germany. Nice one. And I think it is somebody's role every week in these sessions just to remind us all that the great thing with sailing is, yes, it will be just as good, if not better, when we are released back out onto the water. So sit tight, watch the videos on YouTube and get ready so that when it's on, you can go and attack it. So now is the time to be doing work with your boats. Unless you are actually, like if you're in Australia, we saw Wales recent, last weekend maybe, looked absolutely fantastic. But if you're not able to get out on the water, get everything as ready now as you can do. So when it is time to get out on the water, you can really maximize your time out there. All right. Scrolling back. All right, we're almost there, so it seems. Oh, Herbert's hitting me with a John Cena. Or what's it called? A dab. I've learned that from my 7-year-old. That's called the dab, apparently. Don't know why. But there we are. Jerome, great explanations as ever. Thanks, man. Thank you. Worried about sailing my 16 solo in case of going overboard. Would use of bungee on the tiller to bring the boat to a stop work. Oh, it's not something that we've I've never actually seen that used as a concept. The most dangerous time with the solo falling overboard, if you saw Show Us Your Cat, I think it was the week before last, maybe the week before that, there was Scott solo on his 16, went off the back, his jib was pinned in, but the main sheet was loose. This is the worst situation, because if the jib is tight and the main sheet is loose, then that means the boat is going to keep bearing away and just sailing off into oblivion. Tension in the main sheet is going to bring the boat up into the wind, and or either into the wind or the boat will capsize. Either way, you'll be able to get back to the boat. So what I generally keep in mind when I'm single-handed, but I do it all the time when I'm sailing anyway, is I am not letting go of the main sheet. So by doing that, it means if I fall off the boat, I'm holding on to the main sheet, then by holding on to the main sheet, me in the water holding the main sheet. Main sheet's going to be getting tighter, which if the wind's lighter, the boat's just going to head up into the wind. If the wind's stronger, the boat will capsize, and I've got a main sheet to pull myself back to the boat with. That is how I go about this whole solo sailing man overboard kind of situation. But the bungee, whether it would work, it probably wouldn't actually, because what that bungee would do is just bring the rudders central. It wouldn't actually head the boat up. So hold on to the main sheet. That is what I would say is the best advice. But then my other advice, which I've become recently a big advocate of, is whenever you go sailing, put a whistle in your buoyancy aid. There's a million different whistles out there, but with a whistle, if you are in the water on your own, no boat, you can attract attention so much easier than if you haven't got a whistle. There we go, man overboard. Okay. All right, Cole says, what's your opinion on the Prindle 19? I think the Prindle 19 looks good. It was designed for, I think, the Prindle 19 was for heavier people, but the Prindle 19 does pack a punch in the how much does it weigh department. I think the factory spec is something like 190 kilos, which makes it a bit heavier than an F18. But if there's one for sale in your area, then I'd say yes, go for it. If it's in good condition, good price, but it's not going to be as wide as an F18 as well. The F18 has got a lot more going for it than the Prindle 19 because it's a more modern design. And as we get more modern designs, they learn from designs of the past. And that's why the new designs just keep getting better and better. But the Prindle 19 is a serious boat. And yeah, you can attack it very much in the same way as an F18 Tornado, something like that. Okay, no further questions, please. Just wrapping this up now. Rich loves the enthusiasm. I am very enthusiastic. Okay. All right, aloha from Molokai. That must be in Hawaii somewhere. Please asking again, the Dart 12 Youth Fun Speedster. Where are the fleets located? Can you connect me with the owners? And is this boat still being built? I would say no, the Dart 12 is certainly not being built. I think there weren't very many that were built at all back in the day. I think it must have been about 20 years ago that they built the Dart 12, and there's not many about now. So it is unlikely that there would be fleets of them, but I will take more of a look into it. But I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't think we're going to find anything. The Dart 15 was, of course, still is extremely popular, whereas the Dart 12, they had a go at it, but it didn't really take off. Perhaps they were used in sailing schools, but not in great numbers. Charlie, hi. Good to have you on board. Hope you're doing well. Valentine says, have you heard of H? Oh, the Goodall Akura. Yeah, I have heard of that. I was meant to be going to Belgium to see the guys at Goodall, but of course with global lockdown and all that, I had to cancel that trip, which is a great shame. But yeah, I'll have to watch one of these sort of press release videos where they're talking about the Akura, because at the moment I don't really know what it does. All right. Hi, Damien. Stephen from Canada. Stephen is enjoying, this is a very important point. He's enjoying his Giving It the Beans Hobie 16 t-shirt with his own sail colours on there. So there you go. These bad boys are still available at totaljoyrider.com, as are these bottles. I've got another design on the bottles now as well. I've had this bottle now for, I think, 2 years, and she's still going strong, keeping the drinks cold, and with that satisfying metallic feel. Haven't yet lost it overboard. Big selling point. But head over to totaljoyrider.com. But before that, just give this video a like. It's not a video, it's a live stream. But anyway, give us a like before you go. I'm going to head off now. So thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. It has been a great pleasure. And you can all congratulate yourselves again on coming out with a load of questions that we haven't had yet. It is amazing every week that we keep getting more questions. And hi, Max, just nipping in there at the end. Great session again. Thanks, man. Okay, so I'll see you next week with some more of this. Again, oh, hold on. Yes, please, find Dart 12s. Oh, are the molds for sale? Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks, Marco. Yeah, I will look into that and look into that. And I'll look into that. What else? Yeah, if you are thinking about, if you've got a boat, show us your cat. Send me photos, video of your boat, and you could be featured this coming weekend. That would be great. Otherwise, thanks very much, and we'll see you next week with some more